At DePaco Credit Union, we value your health and happiness as much as your financial well-being. What's your dream? A trip? A new home? Or maybe it's a green electric bass guitar. No matter the goal, we're here to help you create a plan that helps you achieve it. Share your dreams with us, and we'll work with you to turn them into reality. Well-being is the key to a life worth loving. So when you think about yours, remember that DePaco can help you be well.
All things Hawkeyes. Your all-access pass from the sidelines to the postgame. Iowa's News Now Sports presents Eye on the Hawks. Sponsored by DePaco Community Credit Union and Pin Seekers.
Some may say it's the most important episode of an entire season because 3 months from now we get to look back and realize how dumb we were. It's a litmus test, so to speak. Welcome to Eye on the Hawks, our 2025 season preview. Mitch Fick, Owen Sebring, Mike Howell here. Thank you to DePaco and Pin Seekers for sponsoring the podcast. We've told you for weeks, if not a couple of months now, that there will be a new studio. As you see, if you're watching on YouTube, we are still in the Broadcast Park studio, the headquarters of KGAN. The studio is coming, the new studio. I just took a picture not too long ago, and credit where credit's due. It's messy a little bit. We're cleaning up, but things are coming together. DePaco studio there for the Eye on the Hawks podcast. You're seeing Brent and Kayla there in the picture. That is 50% of our engineering team. Not seen there are Jeff and Aaron. These folks, with the 19 things they perpetually have on their plate, are busting their tails to get that thing done, along with everything else they're doing around Broadcast Park. So kudos to them and everybody who's involved in putting that thing together. It is very close. The hope is next week, we're talking about Albany, we'll be in that space. So thank you to them real quick and everything they're doing to get that thing looking pretty darn good. We got some wires to put together and all that, but we're moving forward, and that's going to be a really, really cool space that we will be in very, very soon. Days away, hours away possibly. How are we feeling a week and a half out from the start of the college football season, at least in Iowa City? You got the Cyclones already over in Dublin getting ready for K-State, and a lot of folks have made that trip early. It's football. We're going to be happy to have it back.
That's true. Just being out and about among all the high school coaches, I just always feel like there's such electricity around August just because everybody is like, you know, I was talking to Mitch Moore the other day, the City High football coach, and it's like we just talk for 45 minutes after we're done, and it's like just football. Oh, football. You know, everybody's just wanting to talk anything football related this time of year. And so high school, college, NFL in a couple weeks, everything just seems to have that electric football atmosphere around it right now.
Yeah, end of this week too, high school football. I remember my playing days at Fort Dodge Senior High, you know. That's when you kind of get like, all right, let's play. Mm-hmm. You're getting angry with some of the teammates. You're going up and you can only imagine what's like in college too with Division I athletes all across the board. So I'm excited. I'm excited for this weekend. I coincidentally went to the Big 12 basketball tournament this March just for fun in the I think it was the quarterfinal round on Friday. No, that would have been the semifinals. And I bought this cool Kansas State shirt. I had no intentions of wearing it, but like for an Iowa State game. But you know, this Saturday I'm gonna have it on. It's one of those retro logos. Sure. I have a couple. I have like a Virginia Tech one and some other schools that I just think have cool logos. So excited to put that on Saturday.
We almost could have done this season preview episode after the Iowa State-Kansas State game, get that week 0 out of the way, and actually see what Iowa State has to offer. I mean, I think they're going to be good. Maybe they lost some guys that could make them take a step backwards, but Cy-Hawk game in week 2 is going to be wild.
Kansas State's one of the favorites to win the Big 12, so even if they drop the game, they still should be a tough team. That is Iowa State, but it should be one of the better Aer Lingus Classics just from a top 25 showdown this week. So. Mm-hmm.
Going to be a lot of fun, and we've got a lot of our colleagues who have made the trip overseas. We don't say that often in college football coverage, but going to be fun to see what everybody does over there, and certainly just to having temperatures and humidity drop. Mm-hmm. It's starting to feel like football very soon.
Do you think Kirk would ever allow the Hawkeyes to go play the Aer Lingus Classic? Like Kirk does not like to go outside of the norm. He hates going to the West Coast, hates playing on a baseball stadium field. Would he ever even allow his team to leave the country?
I wouldn't see it. I mean,
stay here.
Yeah, the only time I can remember Iowa playing like a non-warm-up game, if you put it like an FCS or a MAC level team, is in 2020 when you had to against 2021 wasn't the first game against Indiana, or was that the first Big Ten game?
At home against Indiana, that first one. Yeah,
that's kind of wild. Yeah. But I wouldn't see that happening. But who knows?
Yeah. We'll see. Hey, 11 a.m. on ESPN. That's gonna be fun. It's just gonna be fun to watch football. Just gonna be fun to watch football. A lot of high school teams getting scrimmages in coming up on Friday. You've been doing two-a-day stuff, you and Patrick Smith. So head to iowasnewsnow.com. We'll plug that quick and catch up on your favorite high school team around Eastern Iowa. So here is how this is all gonna work out as we go through our season preview. At the end of this, we'll go through the game-by-game predictions. All of us are each individual predictions for how the win-loss is going to go out. We've got bold predictions. We've talked about those before of just what's the thing that on a wild hair we think is going to come out 12, 13, 14 games into this season. Our breakout players, the guys who maybe we've been talking about a little bit, who's really going to burst onto the scene, so to speak, and announce their presence with authority. But we will first tee it up, courtesy of Pin Seekers, with our offensive, that little ping. Nice when you get the sound in there. Our offensive MVP, our defensive MVP. Let's start on the offensive side of the ball. Year 2 under Tim Lester. Who do we think is going to be the most valuable player on the 2025 Hawkeye offense?
Got a graphic for this. Has all the names on it, though. Who wants to go first? Who wants to unveil it?
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, it's all you.
Mark Gronowski.
There you go. Owen's got Reese Vanderzee. I also went Mark Gronowski. Let's start with the outlier, so to speak, the guy who's spent a lot of time on the west side of Iowa and started talking about Reese Vanderzee early last year, and certainly talk about announcing your presence with authority in that opener. Reese Vanderzee, what makes you give him the OMVP honors?
You know, I'm familiar with his game back from his days in Central Lyon. I always like to shout out Sean Bach, one of our colleagues too, that does some web stuff. And when Reese was still in high school, he was on this show, Eye on the Hawks, when it was still a television program that aired on Thursday nights.
Way back when.
And he said, boy, this kid from Central Lyon, Reese Vanderzee, he's going to be really good. He's a highly sought-after receiver, and he was right. And I just think that Iowa's obviously had his quarterback issues in the last few years. Maybe that's not going to be the case this year. We hope not. But even if Gronowski gets injured or there's issues with who's going to be going under center, Reese feels like the guy who quarterbacks can lean on, even more so maybe than tight ends in the past. Reese is a guy, his numbers were not, as much as he announced his presence last year, his numbers were not crazy. Less than 200 receiving yards, 14 catches, 3 touchdowns. Like, those aren't eye-popping numbers, but based on what we've seen in some of the practices, what we've seen in some of the sizzle reels that the Hawkeye media team has released, seems like Reese Vanderzee could be the go-to receiver this year, the go-to pass catcher this year. And whether it's Gronowski, whether it's Vanderzee, obviously Vanderzee can't do anything without Gronowski or whoever is quarterback, but I think that he could be the guy that really starts drawing a lot of attention in the Big Ten this year.
Iowa definitely needs a top-tier receiver to emerge like they did when they had Amir Smith-Marset and Marvin McNutt, DJK, all those kind of guys. I went with Mark Gronowski because I just think, I have this belief that if he's not the MVP, then Iowa might have a long year, right? If he doesn't perform like, Iowa has a tougher schedule than they have had in recent years, at least 5. I look back and maybe 2019 they had like 3 or 4 ranked opponents on the schedule. So I just think if that quarterback play isn't improved and isn't better, then you're putting a lot on the defense with a lot of returners. You're gonna have to do it again, and at some point, they might be good but not great.
Yeah, I'll touch on Reese Vanderzee too, and I couldn't pull the touchdown shot that you got out of East Lansing. It was a great touchdown shot, but we've got a little bit of Reese Vanderzee to show you, and to your guys' credit too. Yeah, the practices, going back to the spring, and certainly just a couple Saturdays ago at Kinnick, he's popping. Reese missed some time last year, had a broken foot that I think kept him out for 5, 6, 7 games, something like that. There were opportunities for him to be out there, but I think it was the Washington game. He came out, and I think Lachey was a little banged up in that one as well. But man, when he was on the field, Iowa just doesn't have, besides Dayton Howard, 6'4" guys that you can just toss one up to. You saw there from the practice the other day, Hank Brown just putting it up and let your 6'4" guy go get it. And again, that opener against Illinois State, that's kind of what Cade was doing on that second touchdown to him. He just has, on top of the skill set that he has, tall receiver. That's just something that Iowa hasn't had a whole lot of since, guys like Marvin McNutt, who were 6'3", 6'4", who could go up and get it and had hands to boot. So he's just got an opportunity he could end up being Iowa's number 1 receiver. But to Mike's point, the straw that stirs this drink, the garnish on the rim, every part of the cocktail, so to speak, I feel like has to be Mark Gronowski. Unless the only way I feel like the passing game rises and he's not the MVP is if Kamari or TJ or Jazz or Nathan McNeil, somebody explodes out of the backfield again, like we talked about with Caleb Johnson last year eventually at the end of the season. Mike was the only one who was on the Caleb Johnson train for his MVP. But when you bring a guy in that has 55 starts, that's won 49 college games, that will, unless the wheels really fall off, end his college career as the winningest quarterback in the history of all division NCAA football. To Mike's point, if he's not the MVP, something's gone crazy wrong. So I think, are his numbers going to be, is he going to be a 3,000-yard passer? I would say probably not, because he's only done that once at South Dakota State, and it was in a 15-game span. But he's going to be your guy that can do maybe what we saw Stanzi do in 2010, where it's just super efficient, get the ball where it needs to be. Touchdown to interception ratio is really good, making good decisions. And what he does on the ground, too, I think is really going to lend itself to what this offense can see on both sides of the ball, passing and rushing the football. I think that's, watch his tape from Brookings. Running is such a huge part of his game, and you get that nice blend, I think, of the passing you had with Stanley, at least in terms of numbers and proficiency and all that. But then you also get what Brennan Sullivan brought to the table in some respect, which is a guy who can move out of the pocket and really be dangerous with his feet. That's why I feel like he's going to be your most valuable player at the end of this, regardless of record. Again, the straw that stirs the drink on this offense could be number 11. We move now to the defensive MVP. How are we feeling about this one, Owen? Do you want to kick us off?
Man, okay, I guess I'm the outlier again.
That's all right, though.
We did not plan this. Mitch and I did not plan having the same offense and defensive MVP.
That's a real good pick, too.
Yeah, I feel like, if I'm not mistaken, I might have even picked Aaron Graves as the defensive MVP last season, too. I feel like, again, he doesn't quite qualify as Northwest Iowa, but maybe, again, it's that Southwest Valley connection that he's got.
Close enough.
Yeah, he's a tweener between the Des Moines and Siouxland markets. Graves just is such a smart guy. He's growing up. Obviously, we've talked a number of times about him getting married in the offseason. Seems like this could be, I wasn't going to put him as like a breakout player because he's already a name that a lot of people know. It doesn't quite qualify as breakout player to me, but a guy who I think could end the year as a first-team Big Ten caliber player and move his way up, potentially be a first or second rounder in the NFL draft. I think that he's got the size, the body, the intangibles, the intelligence, the numbers, everything that you'd want in a player to be a potential NFL player. And I think that this is the year that we really see him shine, put down a couple of safeties maybe in the end zone. Nice kid, obviously. We always love our conversations with Aaron, and he could be something special this year. I feel like he even kind of came on at the tail end of last year, like that Nebraska game we're just seeing highlights from. He was so huge in that one, and could be a lead into something special this year.
He's going to be a dad, too. I mean, hey, talk about your world just going into overdrive there. You're playing your senior year of football. You've married your wife, and now you're starting a family, Logan Lee-esque. And I think he'll be just a fantastic leader. And, defensive tackle, perfect example, Y.A. Black. The stats maybe aren't jumping off the page at you, but you could make a darn compelling argument. Y.A. Black was as important as anybody on that defense the last few years just because of what he was able to do in the trenches, maybe freeing up opportunities for guys like Max Llewellyn and Ethan Herkett to get in there and the linebacking core to get through and make their tackle. So Aaron Graves, wouldn't be shocked if that guy was at the top of the heap when it comes to most important players on that defense. Mike and I, though, went the Cohen Endringer route. We're drinking that Kool-Aid, certainly, as of seeing his rise. He's come a long way since 2023, just making a great special teams play. It feels like every practice, and that's mostly where we have our highlights of Cohen, have been these practices. He has shined time and time again, even just a week and a half ago at the scrimmage. He's far more than just the guy that we're watching recite the Kinnick speech in every pregame. He's got a shot, and I think it was Chad Leistico just put out some bold predictions for the year. Mm-hmm. Going from a one-start guy to first-team All-Big Ten would not shock me in the slightest. Cohen Endringer seems poised for massive things in 2025.
It's so wild just thinking about his story being so much potentially. I mean, we've still got the season ahead, but if it turns out the way we think, could be so similar to the Cooper DeJean story, where Kirk always talked about that chase down play that Cooper had in the bowl game when he was a freshman and chased a guy down and tackled him. Exact same thing that Cohen Endringer did a couple years ago in the Big Ten championship game, and that was kind of the start of the Cohen Endringer legend, and we'll see how that legend ends up culminating this year.
Yeah, and I almost picked a defensive lineman, but I kind of think there's too many of them that will get in the rotation. Maybe they won't have as much stats as you will, but that cash position that Cohen will play, and if he doesn't, he'll play safety. He's going to be on the field, 90% of the snaps if he stays healthy. I just think that role in Iowa gives you so much ability to make plays and make tackles and sacks. And we saw Seb blitz a lot. He got sacks and interceptions and stuff. But it was kind of wild too. You see the talent and you see the skill, but then you look back and you're like, wow, he had 18 tackles. You'd expect him to have more, but he played behind a low like Seb and all those guys in the secondary. 1 pick against Michigan State, his lone start, and 1 pass defended. You see the skill and the talent, and you think, all right, that's going to translate, and that's going to, those stats are going to explode this year. Or that's the hope of when you pick him as defensive MVP. And then when you see him excel at the Kids Day scrimmage, arguably the defensive MVP there. We talked about it a couple weeks ago. So, no, I'm excited for what he can do and that secondary as a whole.
The narrative of, and this started back in the spring, of because there are so many quote-unquote new guys stepping into starting roles in the defense, that there was talk that, the offense might be the one kind of picking up some of the slack for the defense, so to speak. There were a lot of 5th and 6th year guys that came back on that defense last year. The guys that are behind them, again, have played a lot of football or have been in this program for a long time, and they would have got their shot in 24. Now they come in 25, and you see them flash right away, and you go, oh, geez, this kind of came out of nowhere in some sort of perspective. Nah, they've been in a college program for 3, 4, 5 years in some cases. They can play, they just haven't gotten their opportunity. And so I do think there's maybe a bit of a misconception that the defense is going to really have to scramble to get their experience and fill, quote unquote, fill these gaps, because you do lose Jay Higgins and Nick Jackson. And by the way, you see why people were saying they should be drafted? Feels like they're doing pretty well in the NFL preseason. But you've got all this experience that just hasn't played a whole lot behind them. And Cohen, I think, is a perfect example of that. He's got on the field now in practice. And we've seen why people are so high on him and invited to Big Ten Media Days, and wouldn't be shocked if he is one of your defensive captains out there.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I personally still have some questions. Obviously, when you have new starters across the linebacking core, it's like, can they do it again? But Cohen has a little bit more plays under his belt than some of the new linebackers do. Not all of them. Harsin played a lot last year too, and Jaden got in several games. So, just looking forward to that. Hopefully, they do step up. But, will the offense lead? Who knows? My breakout player kind of, I guess.
What a segue. Go ahead. Yeah.
Kind of leads to that, or at least I'm not predicting he's going to be a superstar on this. But I think the breakout player, when I think of that, I'm thinking of a player that's just going to come on the scene. And I really think true freshman Nathan McNeil, running back, I don't think he's going to lead the team in rushing, but he's going to make a major impact on the offense.
He's kind of forced a lot. It feels like fans' hands at least, and certainly sounds like maybe he's forcing the coaches' hands too, of this guy who nobody knew about Nathan McNeil. Heck, Tyler Tashman just wrote a great article earlier this week about Liddell Betts, who recruited Nathan to Iowa, kind of going to Tyler Barnes and going, hey, I was trying to watch this other kid. Am I crazy? Or is this kid popping for them? And yeah, Tyler said, no, you're not crazy. Get him here. And so that started the recruiting spiel there. And yeah, going back to spring ball, you're just like, who's 25? Who's got this wiggle and he's got some size? And yeah, you can't help but think he's got some sort of role.
My breakout player, we don't need to touch too much more on Cohen Intringer. That's who I think that he's a valid definition of a breakout player, just because his numbers again last year are really nothing special at all. Only 18 tackles all of last season. I think he too missed some time with an injury, did he not?
It feels like a lot of guys are big. I can't remember him exactly.
One of many. He had the one interception last year. Was that against
Michigan State?
That's what I was thinking. It was back in his home state. Yeah, I'm like, I think I remember.
That was the one game he started.
Yeah. Had just one pass breakup all year. I mean, it's like he did not have incredible numbers that would make you think that he's going to be a superstar this year, but I think he could come out and, as we've said, be potential all Big Ten player.
Just to get Nathan a little shine, can you roll his video?
Yeah, sure.
Going and putting these highlights reel together this afternoon, we already have a lot of Nathan McNeil stuff, more than we probably have of any true freshman running back. But this is, even just going back to practices early in August and back in April, you're just like, man, he moves so well. Kirk was asked about him quite a bit too, and yeah, he's 200 pounds and moving like that. Like this kid's just seems Big Ten built already, and this was going back to the spring. Getting outside, cutting back in, just really fast feet. Yeah, you can't help but think he's got some sort of role.
Some kind of role, some kind of impact, and that's kind of like why I put him in my list. Like, will he be a top 3 rusher on the team, like the third guy? Sure. Maybe by the end of the year, running back, there's always a possibility of injuries. And what I saw from that one practice, maybe I'm putting a little bit too much stock into it. I think you got to play him a little bit, and he's got the ability, it looks like, to play this. And it's funny you mentioned his recruiting, and he only got offered from Arkansas State and Rhode Island, and it's
really,
yeah. So in that article I was reading it too, Tyler talked to Liddell Betts, and he said that he had a really quiet junior year in the Tampa area, and that's a talent-rich area in Florida. Sure. So I'm wondering if what's what happened. He was the late bloomer in high school, and not a lot of schools, kind of gave him a chance. And Iowa was luckily enough; they were recruiting another player there who plays at Texas now, and lucky enough to find maybe a diamond in the rough.
Yeah, that's how it goes. You go looking for one thing, and you find something else, and it's fun. And Nathan's gotten a lot of run with the 1s and 2s because Kamari Moulton has been out of practice for a little bit. Not sure of if that's anything crazy to worry about. TJ Washington has been as well, but he's been out there during the fall scrimmage. The new video the social team put out last night showed TJ and Kamari still on the sidelines. Despite all that, though, and Nathan popping like that, I still feel like TJ Washington has a chance to really shine. I picked 2 breakout players. I went offense and defense. We'll start with TJ, who, of course, had the touchdown in the bowl game. We make a lot out of him spending a year in the wide receiver room and expanding his skill set. I was talking to Omar Young at Media Day a couple weeks ago, and I used the term gadget when talking about TJ, just in the sense of he has the ability to do a lot of different things. Omar Young really emphasized TJ Washington is still a running back, and he's a really good running back. And it does feel like he and Kamari are 1A and 1B, and TJ just has the ability, as you see back in the spring with some shiftiness of his own, he just has, when you know the route trees, and you can be a part of the passing game too. Alluded to it after in our scrimmage recap. I don't think he's going to be the leading rusher, won't be the leading receiver. When you get down to late November, I wouldn't be shocked if TJ Washington's in the top 3 or 4 of all-purpose yards for offensive players for Iowa. I think he just has a wide skill set, and I think he's a guy that Tim Lester's going to have a lot of fun getting involved in this offense, not necessarily in the gadget, like kind of trickeration type stuff, but just he can do 2 things really, really well. And when you can bring that much to the table in the offense, you're going to get a chance to shine, and I think that'll be really fun to see TJ go. On the defensive side, Mike mentioned him earlier as well, Carson Shire. We've learned how to pronounce the name. It looks like Shirar, but
I still have trouble.
This kid's magic, like he comes from the Shire. I don't know if I'm butchering Lord of the Rings lore or anything like that.
Not great. But
going back to 2023, special teams ace, recovered a fumble in Lincoln against Nebraska, and then has just been hitting dudes on kick return and punt return. Going back to the bowl game, had one against Minnesota that was initially called targeting. They eventually waved it off after the league office took a look, because that was the call that we needed them to overturn in the Minnesota game in 23. But a guy who's played 30-plus games of special teams in his career already has really announced his presence. And that whole linebacking core, I think you could pick any of them to have a breakout season, really, but anybody in the secondary too, just because there's a lot of guys that are really getting their feet wet in terms of expanded starting roles. But Carson Shire seems like a guy that could really, really make the impact more figuratively than the literal he's already made on some kick returners around the Big Ten.
You see, the hobbits who lived in this show, they were not the magic ones. It was more Gandalf and the wizarding race.
I got a little cute there. I get it.
Yeah, going back to TJ Washington, one thing that sticks out about like his potential to score this year is that he still has an option to be the kick return guy, opposite Caden Weegan. And so everybody knows Caden now after his Jet Award win last year. And so if TJ's a guy who's standing opposite him this year, going back to kind of the all-purpose yard scenario, that's a place that he can also pile up a lot of yards.
For sure.
This running back room is going to be interesting to see who plays, because I truly believe McNeil will get some, but I do think Kamari and TJ are ahead of him. And like you mentioned, like by all accounts, the coaches say they're both fine. But this is like the third, instance in a row. But we don't know when that video was shot. Like, to your credit, before the show, we were talking about it.
Yeah, the Tim Lester, Seth Wallace mic'd up. Drew and the whole video team there. If you haven't watched that yet, go enjoy it, because it's Talk about two guys who have very different senses of humor, maybe different styles of coaching, but they are
good watch.
immensely entertaining. 6 seasons in a movie of Tim Lester and Seth Wallace chatting it up at practice. It was a lot of fun.
But, we don't know when it was released yesterday. We don't know when it was shot. Sure.
Yeah.
But again, Kids Day, BTN, which was like 2 days later, and then this, they were both out. But I think you feel comfortable that Jazz and then, Xavier Williams, McNeil, and Brevin Dahl would be fine against an Albany. Mm-hmm. And it might be even more interesting to see which one of them can stand out against an FCS level team like that. But then when you're in Iowa State, you kind of wish you have Kamari and TJ have a little bit of a test run before you go against a team like that. But yeah, the running back room will be an interesting thing to see who gets those carries and how they split them up.
Yeah, wide receiver is going to be the same way. I mean, everybody on that, you could pick 8, 9, 10 different guys on offense to be breakout players because that receiver room isn't just Reese, but you've got Jacob Gill, your leading receiver that's returning. You've got Seth Anderson, which he's been flashing a lot and seems like, man, when he's healthy, he could be the dude. Sam Phillips transfers in. You've got Caden Weegan out there. You've got Dayton Howard. You've got Jarriett Bowie, who's been running with the ones at times going back to 2023. It's those skill spots. And we haven't even talked about the tight ends, Addison Estrenga and Zach Ortworth and Hayden Large and those guys. There's a lot of opportunity out there. And that's really the fun part about the breakout player picks we're making here is that we could go 0 for 4 on these, or at least 0 for 2 on the offensive side. There are just so many opportunities out there. And, maybe by this time next month we'll know a little more, but it's certainly going to be fun. And we could turn then about the bold predictions that those guys could be rolling out of and what we could see from them. So what are our bold predictions heading into the 2025 season? Now, Owen's got a big one.
Yeah. Now, when I take the bold prediction definition, I like to approach it as this is not a thing that I think is going to happen, but again, as we say, kind of a crazy out there idea that maybe this is a possible thing to keep our eye on. Similar to last year, I think my bold prediction was that Iowa would have 2 1,000-yard rushers. The year before, I predicted that Iowa would have a Heisman finalist, I think. These are not things that I think are for sure going to happen. I would not put any money on this, but this is something to maybe keep our eyes on.
Wild hair. That's what this
and
is,
so because we'll see that because this does not match my predictions for what their record is going to be at the end of the year. But I do think that it's not the least likely thing to predict that a couple of things go sideways. Maybe Iowa gets just a couple of key injuries to important players. Maybe they lose 1 or 2 games that they shouldn't against a Rutgers or against a Minnesota. And all of a sudden, that really tough schedule is starting to add up. Maybe you've lost to Iowa State already, and you're running out of real estate for Big Ten wins that could get you into a bowl game. So I think that it's not the least likely thing that could happen that they potentially don't make the postseason.
It is a tough schedule. I will say that. For my bold prediction, moving on, I think the offense averages 30 points per game.
Okay.
And they got, let me fix the mic real quick. All right, so last year there was 27.6 points per game. And I just went back to look to see all right, is 30 a number Kirk Ferentz doesn't get a lot? They've only done it 7 times in the Ferentz era, which is about 1/3.
Last one was 2018, right?
Or 1/4 almost. 2020, actually, they were above that. 2018, 2015, 2008, 2005, 2002, 2001. So a lot of those teams were teams that were, won the 8, 9, 10 games. There's a couple that didn't, 07. I think they won 7 games. In 05, they went 6-6, lost against Texas in the bowl game, I think. Yeah. And then 2020 year was different because it was only 8 games long.
Yeah.
But I did have some trivia for you in this front.
Bring it.
Do you know what year Iowa had the most points per game in the Kirk Ferentz era?
I would have guessed 02.
02 was 32 a game, right? Something like
02 is correct. And then my second point of it was how many points did they average?
Was it 32 something?
37.2.
Wow, really?
Which is by far the most because another Ferentz team hasn't averaged over 31.
They had a couple games where they got up to high 50s or 60s, I feel against maybe Illinois. And
that 2018 season where they were over 30, I mean, that includes 63.
Northwestern 62-10 in 02. That's a high-scoring one.
Yeah, and you had 63-0 in 2018 against Illinois. Sorry, Kaysen Frericks is off camera. But yeah, you have those big outlier games, and that can shift everything up. So you got to get in the weeds.
Which I think they could have a couple of those this year. And before they get into big.
If they want, if they want to, hey, 40 points was great last year to hit that a few times, but yeah, if you've got a chance to, as Tim Lester is on the record as saying, he wants to go for the throat sometimes and really put things away. We'll see how that goes. And you got all these guys that you want to get experience for. Maybe start chasing, but hopefully within reason there. So I thought of like a few different bold predictions for the offensive side. I thought, could Mark Gronowski be an All Big Ten quarterback, which would be the first time Iowa's had an All Big Ten quarterback since
C.J. Beathard?
Spencer Petras in 2020 by the league media was honorable mention All Big Ten. He ended that season great, man. He ended that season great. I thought about maybe Iowa's got a Heisman contender named Caden Weegan if he starts popping on offense and the special teams goes well. And you got Timmy D, Redux. But I decided to flip to the defense. Alluded to this earlier. Just you've got all these starters that left after 5-6 years. You're plugging in guys that have a lot of experience but haven't been out there on the starting defensive field. I believe that in 2025, the total defense, the yards per game rank for Iowa, will be better than it was last year. I think explosive plays will be down. I just think that you've got a lot of experience. You're going to have an offense who's maybe a little more efficient on the passing side of things, that they can be out there longer. The defense won't be out there as much, fewer plays, but I think there can be a few variables that come together that make Iowa's defense statistically, at least in this sense, better than they were in 2024. I don't know if they'll have the turnovers they had. Maybe the sacks go up a little bit. But I think that yards per game number, and maybe even yards per play if they cut down on the explosive plays, that stuff can improve. You don't have the superstar names yet that you had coming back in 24, but I think collectively this group's got a chance to be really darn good. And it sounds like if you listen to Phil Parker in interviews, he seems to be feeling good about this unit too. You can't really tell Phil's mood sometimes, except for just anger and rage on game day, but it feels like he's maybe bullish on this group.
That's pretty bold considering, and this is another transition, the schedule of adding some explosive offenses like Penn State with two of the best running backs.
See Devontae Ross again against Penn State, yeah.
Geez.
Sorry to ruin your day
nightmares.
like that, man. All right, well, yeah, let's get into the schedules here.
I was just going to drop some of those numbers. You talked about the yards per game. I just brought those up. So 318 is what they gave up last year. So, and in 2023, I don't know if you think that they could be this. They had 282 yards per game.
I think it could fall in between there, like a 297, 306, something like that. It'll be close, but I think if you cut down those explosive plays, those 25-yard plus, I think they can be collectively a really, really strong unit that we get pleasantly surprised by because these guys have been around. T.J. Hall, who we haven't talked about, Deshaun Lee, Shaheed Barrows is coming in from South Dakota. You've got dudes who have played a lot of ball, just maybe haven't had the opportunity to really shine. We're going to see what happens there. So let's turn to the schedules then, Mike. Do you want to lead us off here of your game-by-game schedule prediction?
Yeah, I can do that. I had Owen up first, but I'll switch it. It is... So I think I will end the season 8-4. I've got losses at Iowa State. Iowa hasn't lost there since 2011. Coincidentally, that was the last time I was in Ames for a Cyhawk game. I was a junior in college. Couldn't find a ticket, so we went to a bar, and they lost in triple or quadruple
overtime, 44-41. Steele Jantz, Big 12 Player of the Week.
I know Iowa State lost their top two receivers to the NFL. They did bring in some transfers, East Carolina receiver, UCF receiver who looked pretty good. And they bring a lot of returners back on defense. They were super injured last year and still won 10 regular season games. I just don't know if this offense will be gelling enough in that second week, especially when you're playing a weak team like Albany week 1. So I put it as a loss. I think Iowa is starting a 6-1 though, 5-1 in the first 6 games. I wanted to make this Penn State game a win. I just think they're too good.
It's going to be really tough.
They're talented across the board. The O-line's great. Drew Aller probably going to be, one of the most experienced quarterbacks in the Big Ten. The running backs, they've stacked up on receiver, like you said, Troy's Devontae Ross, and they got 2 other transfer receivers coming in, and the defense should be pretty good still. So I just don't think Iowa has enough firepower to hang with them. I did having upset Oregon, because I do think they're going to beat a ranked team for the first time since 2021, when they beat Penn State and Iowa State and Indiana. So USC, I had to put it as a loss. I just don't trust a Kirk Ferentz team going west. I don't even remember. I should have looked it up when the last time they did that outside of the Holiday Bowl, a regular season game out there. And then this is the one that I kind of went back and forth. I have them losing at Nebraska. There's so many tough road games on the schedule. Yeah. Like, to your point about the bowl thing, I think Iowa will easily make a bowl, but all 5 road games could be a loss, right? Piscataway at night. I don't think Rutgers.
Friday is just a little off.
On a Friday.
Yeah.
It's a weird game at
Coming
Wisconsin.
Off a late Saturday game against UMass at home.
Wisconsin probably has the toughest schedule in the Big Ten, and they're probably looking at Iowa saying, that's a game we have to win if we're going to make a bowl. So it's going to be tough. Plus, they're doing 42 push-ups every day after practice, after Iowa beat them by that score. The West Coast trip, and then at Lincoln, year 3 under Matt Rule, if you believe that or not, he's done it everywhere. I know it's a different landscape in college football. I just think Nebraska will be tough.
Yep.
I know people have said that year in, year out, and then they win 5 games or made a bowl game last year, but I actually think the offense will be pretty good, although their defense is a big question mark. So 8-4, 6-3 in the Big Ten.
Yeah. Who's up next?
Owen?
I got Owen.
You want Owen? All right. I think that we are aligned on a lot of our schedule predictions. I also had them losing in Ames. I think that going into that game, presuming a win over Albany, that would be the game that Kirk Ferentz would have a chance to get that Big Ten wins record, and I think that Iowa State would come out motivated. I mean, they really, as much as they always want to beat Iowa, they don't want that to happen on their home field. So having 2 games of experience under their belt, having played at least one really quality opponent already, not to mention a really good FCS team out of South Dakota they're getting in week 1 then. I think that Iowa State's going to possibly be a little bit more ready for that week 2 game. But outside of that, I think it could be a strong start. Obviously, the schedule is not as difficult in that front half. I do have them winning it at Rutgers, beating Indiana at home, and then beating Wisconsin in Madison. Lost to Penn State, win at Kinnick over Minnesota. I feel like a lot of the losses on here are exactly where you think they might be. Again, Penn State, Oregon, USC, and I also think that they could lose on the road in Lincoln. I do believe that Matt Rule is going to have that team, certainly not competing for a playoff spot necessarily, but could get another 1 or 2 wins on the schedule, I think, this year.
It's going to be, been said 100 times now, it's a really, really tough schedule. Tougher than last year. The road games are rough. The home games, you love to have those.
There's a lot of toss-up games.
There's a lot of, and hey,
a lot of gimmies.
How many times has an Iowa team been defined of what they do in the close games? You've got 2009, they won those close games. 2015 won the close games. 2010, 7-5, and you had those gut wrenchers on the road at Arizona in the non-con. You had Ohio State and Wisconsin that were just brutally close losses. That those things shake out all the different ways, and I think games like Penn State could come down, like 2017 when McSorley throws a touchdown to end the game. 2019 was a close one with the old yellow kind of throwback jerseys. Those could come down to 1 possession games across the board, and that could figure into the difference between a 7-5 season or the way I'm predicting is going to be 10-2. I don't know if these are the games they will lose. I just had to pick 2. I think these are the 2 most likely. Mm-hmm. Obviously, things could shift real quick. I've got them going into Penn State 6-0. I think they win it in Ames. I think they handle Indiana. I think they go on the road to Piscataway and they win. I think that Penn State game, no matter what time it's played on October 18th, whether it's a night game, ends up being earlier in the day, I think that does come down to 1 possession. And right now on August 20th, if I got to line up Penn State and everybody they have back and Iowa and what they've got, I'll give the nod to the knee lines, even with Kinnick Magic or however you want to qualify it. The only loss I've got in November, and again, Kirk Ferentz teams in November have just been really, really good. I think 21-3 over the last several years. To Mike's point too, until I see him go on the West Coast and win a game, it's tough for me to, in the regular season, it's tough for me to pick against them. USC could be sneaky good. That's a team that, talk about a defense that might be compensated for the offense a little bit there. I mean, it's Lincoln Riley. They'll move the ball. They'll score some points. But that's a tough defensive team. And again, in Nebraska, until I see Nebraska gets out of its own way, I got to keep taking Iowa there. So I will take Iowa to go 10-2, 7-2 in the Big Ten. I believe that would put them as maybe the number 3 team in the Big Ten and would put them on the cusp of maybe, if the Big Ten gets 3 teams in the playoff, would put Iowa right there for an opportunity.
So I think if this is the record they're in, no matter what, that's just my personal opinion. I think if you're 10-2 in the Big Ten with this schedule, you should get in.
Who knows anymore, man? Who knows?
I'd agree
If
with
the Big
that.
Ten doesn't get 3 in, then it's a bad year. I think you have them in the playoffs.
Pushing for what, 24 or whatever the new
Yeah, for real.
their new protection
With
prediction is.
the quality that you have in the Big Ten and the SEC, I think that if you win 10 games and you're playing in that conference, I think that like that almost has to get you in no matter what. Do you guys think that, because I think both of you picked Iowa to beat Oregon, yeah?
Yeah.
You got them beat
Do you, because Oregon's preseason ranked number 7, do you think that they are not going to be as good this year as a lot of people are thinking, or do you just think that Iowa has a chance to actually beat a potentially top 10 Oregon team?
I just know more about Penn State, and they've got everybody back. And that team was, even without, what was the stat? Like a wide receiver didn't have a catch against Notre Dame in that semifinal loss. And they got that close to playing for a national title, and they would have, Ohio State, Penn State, I know Penn State's having trouble getting over the hump when it comes to them and Michigan over the last couple of years. But, man, if you short up wide receivers, and that was really your only real weakness, that's just a tough team to overcome. Oregon, on the other hand, Dylan Gabriel's out. Dante Moore, who started a handful of games for UCLA in 2023, he steps in. He's had a year away from the spotlight. Just don't know enough about him and what his learning curve has been since leaving UCLA and going to Eugene. It's going to go as quarterbacks go. A big reason I'm picking Iowa to win 10 games is anybody who's been listening to this since the start of the year, I've got full faith in Mark Gronowski and what he can do and keep this thing moving in a really good direction and have a type of season we haven't seen in 10, 15 years from a quarterback at Iowa. So I think, again, going back to where are we, August 20th, if I have to pick Dante Moore or Mark Gronowski, even with all the other things that Oregon has. Oregon's got tons of skill. Dan Lanning's a fantastic football coach. His first trip to Iowa City since he was a GA with Pitt in 2011. Talk about a team that started throwing the ball all over the place in Iowa, coming back from a big deficit to win that one in Kinnick back in 2011. The last time Iowa had a 3,000-yard passer was because James Vandenberg went for 400-plus, I believe it was, in that comeback over the Panthers. I'll still take Gronowski right now and the offense and you're putting a lot of faith in possibility and potential. Right now, I think Iowa's got the opportunity, especially if it's the first game in November. November in Kinnick, too, is a special atmosphere as well. So I think that all of those can factor into them pulling off one of those 2 upsets. If they beat Penn State and lose to Oregon, I would maybe get that, too. Maybe they'd be riding really high. They'd be 8-0 going to an Oregon game where Oregon maybe comes in with a really good record, too. But, November, it's tough to pick against Iowa too often unless you've got an outlier like a West Coast trip where just historically it's been tough to go get those wins.
Yeah, and for me, I wanted them to one of those big games at home, Penn State or Oregon. I was like, I'm gonna put one of them down as a win, and I just, like Mitch said, I don't trust. I didn't want to pick against Penn State because I do think they're one of the best teams in the country right now. And I did look a little bit at that Oregon-Wisconsin game last year, 16-13. They struggled in November in the Midwest. I know it gets cold up in Autzen too.
Oh yeah.
But it's a little bit different traveling a couple time zones away and playing, maybe it's a night game.
It's the same thing with Iowa going out west. Yeah.
It might be a little weird, as Oregon plays more teams in the Big Ten, they're going to get more comfortable with doing that. Same with the Midwestern teams going out west. I just think year 2, I do think, with a new quarterback and I think one of their top receivers got hurt this camp and he's out for the season. I can't remember his name, but Stewart, I think. But anyway, I do think they're talented and they're still going to be like a top 15 team. I just think this is the year Iowa gets one of those upsets because I think they'll have the offense to be able to compete on that side of the ball.
Yeah, Evan Stewart likely going to be out for the year, so that's tough. He got hurt back in June. Also, if you're Iowa, you want that Oregon game to be an 11 a.m. kick again. That's 9 a.m. Autzen time. Get them out of bed early and catch them early, and that'll be a lot of fun. That's the military appreciation game. That's usually we see the red, white, and blue Tiger Hawk on the side of the helmet. That'll be a fun one. No matter what time, but that'd be a good one to get in early and get the Ducks a little off kilter, a little sleepy over there.
Yeah, I guess that I said night game because Wisconsin last year, Oregon-Wisconsin was a night game. But I think you probably would prefer an 11 a.m. kick. And I wonder if the Big Ten's going to maybe, I guess it's not up to them. It's up to the networks. And if Big Noon wants it, Big Noon, I don't know what the schedule is that week, but they'll probably take it. So
there are a few things working for Iowa as I'm looking at the schedule. When they do go to USC, last year at UCLA, it's a Friday night game. It was a little off kilter. USC is either going to be 2 or 2:30. So that's essentially like right around the 11 a.m. kick time in terms of local. I guess that'd be the Iowa time. So over there, yeah, it's not as off-putting as a Friday night
like
game.
a noon local time.
I can't do math. That's why I do this for a living. But yeah, those are our predictions. Do we have any final thoughts that maybe didn't make the graphics or the video about what we could see in September coming up for the Hawks in late August?
It is interesting that I think all three of us picked them to beat Indiana, which
it's going to be a tough game. That's your litmus test.
Coming off a CFP appearance, that's the homecoming game for Iowa this year is that Indiana team. It's like I think that maybe a lot of people are already overlooking them, even though they're ranked 20th in the AP.
And they do bring back a lot of talent, and they brought in a bunch of transfers.
Fernando Mendoza is.
So they also got Maryland's top rusher is in their backfield.
If they're even a little bit similar to who they were last year, that could easily be another loss for Iowa that we're not maybe even considering right now when we look at that schedule.
Here's the question mark with that, though. Indiana, we all agree, was good, but they still, and I know this has been used against Iowa, when you look at their schedule, it was the lower half of the league.
Yeah.
And when they played the good teams, granted, in the playoff, they were down, 27-3, and they came back and made it semi-close. It was too late, for them to come back fully. But can they go on the road against Illinois and Iowa, two teams that they didn't play last year, and compete? I don't know. I still don't know. So I think them coming into Iowa, I think it will be a tough challenge for them. I'm not going to anoint them as an Ohio State or Michigan level, but I do think it will be a very tough game for Iowa to come out with a W.
You'll learn a lot about them the week before they come to Kinnick when they're in Champaign playing a really good Illinois team. Talk about teams that could win 10 games. Illinois, Kaysen's big on them. Big Luke Altmaier guy, as well he should be. Maybe the top 3 or 4 quarterbacks in the Big Ten. So that's what we got. We're 10 days out from kickoff, right?
10 days, yep.
10 days. Nathan Chandler days. Mekhi Sargent days.
I do have...
Deacon Hill days.
Jeremy Hecklinski days.
That's true. I do have one more point, and I was looking at the futures for Iowa last night, and
gotta have betting.
It looks like the over-under is 7.5, so Mitch and I have them over. You have them under with 7 wins. But Vegas thinks that the under's more likely. The deuce is on the under, minus 140, plus 120 on the over if you want to take them to win 8 games. To make the CFP, plus 900 are your odds for Iowa. To make the Big Ten title game, 1,400. And then to win, that'd be 3,500. So I think that tells me that, with the higher odds for the Big Ten title game, that if you do go 10-2, that you're in the playoff. But I guess it depends on how many Big Ten teams are 10-2 and where the rest of college football stacks out.
Can I ask a gambling question as somebody who doesn't gamble? And I don't know if all of our viewers are mostly people who do some gambling and so know this terminology, but explain to me again, so you say they're plus 900 to make the CFP? So tell me what that means again. If you bet
$100, you'd win 900.
So it's a 9-to-1 essentially chance is kind of what we're saying there.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So
I think Betting Corner sponsored by nobody.
But I haven't looked at the top teams. But if it's like super likely, it'd be like you bet 100 and you win like $90. Because they'll take some of your winnings.
Yeah.
So
good note to end on. Thinking about all the losses that could be coming on the gambling side of things. Hey, 10 days out, a week out from our first game preview of the season. Forgot to plug all the socials like we do off the top of the show, but of course you probably know by now, Eye on the Hawks on X, Iowa's News Now YouTube channel and Instagram page. We've got an Eye on the Hawks playlist. It's got anything and everything we do Eye on the Hawks related. Next Tuesday, we'll have all our player interviews leading into the Albany game. And Wednesday night, you will have your first game preview of the 2025 season. It's almost here. The humidity's dropping. The leaves are going to be changing. It's fall. It's football. And we're hyped to get into year 3. We will see you next week on Eye on the Hawks as we get the 2025 season rolling. For Mike and Owen, I'm Mitch. See you on game week.
At DePaco Credit Union, we value your health and happiness as much as your financial well-being. What's your dream? A trip? A new home? Or maybe it's a green electric bass guitar. No matter the goal, we're here to help you create a plan that helps you achieve it. Share your dreams with us, and we'll work with you to turn them into reality. Well-being is the key to a life worth loving. So when you think about yours, remember that DePaco can help you be well.